According to our opponents, every single square inch of the land of Israel is stolen property. Israel is not at all at war with the Arab world. The Arab world is multifaceted, but one thing is clear. The rest of the Arab world is not interested in the Palestinians. If they were, they would open up their borders and accept Palestinian refugees.
Well, folks, I'm with Rabbi Korupkin. He is the rabbi of this synagogue where we continue to see dueling protests for hours. We hear it's going to go on until 9:30. It's just after 5 right now. Rabbi, here's the thing. It's a hypothetical question, but I'm getting a sense that there is a double standard out there. There is two-tier policing, and by that I mean we see these pro-Hamas types come into a Jewish neighborhood, stand right in front of your synagogue. We have heard chants of genocide.
I'm supporting genocide! Stop funding Israel!
Go back to Poland. Rabbi, what I'm getting at is if these were Jews and their allies going to a mosque in Toronto and chanting death to Muslims, how do you think the police and the politicians would respond?
All right, it's a good hypothetical, David, but I'm going to take a different approach. I'm not going to suggest that it's a double standard, but I do believe that the police are taking a peace officer approach. In other words, they're less interested in upholding the law than they are in keeping the peace. And those sometimes are two very different things. There is a criminal code that's already part of Ontario law that prohibits a gathering like this that is meant to intimidate and frighten a local community. We've had to be terribly inconvenienced. As you can see, the streets have been shut down, our schools had to dismiss early, and we've had to bear the insult of having our house of prayer be literally spit upon by these protesters. I can't even imagine the hypothetical that you just framed, because there is no reality where anyone in my community, at least I would like to think, I certainly wouldn't, would go to another house of prayer where we worship the same God. I'm sure there are illegalities that we could point at it going on in certain mosques right here in the GTA, such as funding terror groups and things like that. I'm not naive, and while I may know that it's going on, even if I felt that it was wrong, I would make a protest in a civil way, but never to go to a mosque where people are there to pray, where people are there to practice their religion freely. You know, you're hearing the protesters say that this has nothing to do with religion, the sale of properties in Israel. Of course it does. It's our homeland. The love of the land of Israel is an integral part of our faith. So for them to suggest that this has nothing to do with religion is an absolute falsity, together with 99% of the other things that they're spewing.
That is the crux of the matter. I mean, I was here further down on Clark Avenue at another synagogue on Sunday that attracted a smaller demonstration. And today there's an event like the synagogue on Sunday. It was some kind of exposition about having Canadians invest in Israel property, I understand. And of course, the pro-Hamas people, they're claiming it's stolen land.
Palestine is not for sale! Zionist, go to hell!
Can you inform our audience what this land in question is all about?
All you have to do is listen to the chant, Free, Free Palestine, from the river to the sea. According to our opponents, every single square inch of the land of Israel is stolen property. I would first of all tell people to look at a history long before 1947 and 1948, if that's not good enough for them. Go back 3,000 years. The real indigenous people of the Middle East, of that land, are the Jews. Look in the Bible. Joshua came in with a whole generation of my ancestors and inhabited the land. There has been a consistent, non-stop a presence of Jews in the land of Israel for the last 3,000 years. Despite tremendous persecution and a lot of violence, we have always lived there. It is our land. Now, if someone still says, well, you stole the land because of a war in 1948, I would tell a person who comes with that accusation who lives here in Canada, I'd say, where do you live? Brampton, Mississauga, Those are interesting names. What is Mississauga named after? Is it possible that you're living on stolen land also, according to your very argument?
What are your thoughts post-October 7th?
Well, there's a couple of things to unpack, David. One is the idea of the Abraham Accords that came to a halt on October 7th. I want to make it very, very clear. Israel is not at all at war with the Arab world. The Arab world is multifaceted, but one thing is clear. The rest of the Arab world is not interested in the Palestinians. If they were, they would open up their borders and accept Palestinian refugees.
And why aren't they?
Who are suffering terribly. Because every population has its riffraff. Just ask the Jordanians about Black September. Anywhere the Palestinians have gone, they've created havoc in those host countries. And I think that that's our fate. The Israelis' fate is to contain that neighborhood and do the best that they can to contain a nationality that has certain inbred hostilities. And it would be wrong to paint all Arabs as being violent, hate mongers, and supporters of Hamas. That is not at all the case. After the war is over, the Abraham Accords will resume, and Israel will accumulate more and more friends in the neighborhood because the world realizes that violence is not the answer.
I witnessed it myself on Tuesday at Scotiabank Arena, where there were Jewish fans wearing sweatshirts that said, "Free our hostages," and they were literally being carded and intimidated and harassed by Scotiabank Arena security staff. They were told either take that off, cover up, or leave the building, and even potentially get charged with trespassing. These are ticket buyers. And what I'm getting at, Rabbi, is how is "free our hostages" a political statement to begin with? This is a humanitarian statement. I can't imagine in 1979 an American going to Madison Square Garden with "free our hostages" about the Americans being held captive by the Iranian regime, being hassled by security. What in blue blazes is Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment thinking, taking this, what I think is an outrageous stance?
I don't know. I think you should ask them, but I completely agree with your assessment. Calling for the freedom of innocent hostages. I don't care if a group of Iranians had been captured by Iraqis, I would say the same thing. Free the hostages. Let innocent people go. These people have been raped and abused and are deprived of basic human rights, are being held against their will. There is no greater crime than kidnapping and holding people hostage. I don't understand how this can be considered a political statement in any way. And if we don't stand for Israel and stand for the Jewish community, then we're just giving them a pass to continue creeping forward and continue to try to suppress who we are and our rights. We cannot stand by idly. Every Jew has to stand up and stand for Israel and stand for the Jewish people.
What is behind this? My theory is that it's the two I's, ignorance and indoctrination. There are people on that side of the street that have never been to the Middle East, probably couldn't find Israel on a map, but they have no knowledge, and then they're on a university campus in which this whole question of Israel-Palestine is through the lens of victim and victimizer, colonialist and colonialized. Is that what's going on?
Well, first of all, on the university campuses, this is a 50-year effort that has materialized after a lot of effort that started literally 50 years ago on university campuses with liberals becoming part of university faculties, with socialist and communist and colonizer ideologies, victimizer and victim ideologies, and now we're reaping the bitter fruits of that today. I was just at a conference in the United States where a young student at Harvard, with another group of students, started litigation against the campus authorities because despite having a task force on anti-Semitism, absolutely nothing has changed. That's the reason why two co-chairs that are leading that task force on anti-Semitism have already resigned their post. The universities, many of them, not all of them, are literally standing by and allowing Jewish students to be victimized, to be harassed, to be called the most horrible names, and to be intimidated. And that's the reason why a lot of our students are no longer thinking about going to Ivy League schools. And it's happening here in Canada too, unfortunately, on the campus of York and the campus of University of Toronto and at Ryerson. These are real serious problems.
Is there anything I missed that you feel might be relevant? Last word goes to you, Rabbi.
Thank you, David. First of all, thank you for the work that you're doing. Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live, and let's bring them home. Bring home our hostages. That's really the most important issue right now. Let's finish this war. Let's get our hostages home, and let's restore the peace to the land of Israel and to its neighbors.
Folks, what this debate is all about, it's very simple. Civilization versus savagery. You know what? I'm a big fan of civilization, and if you feel like I do, go to our petition, CanadaStandsWithIsrael.com. That's CanadaStandsWithIsrael.com. Stand up for Israel, stand up for democracy, and yes, stand up for civilization.